Hello, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell with news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, November 1st. Can you believe it? Already November 1st, 2018. Um, I'm doing this very, very early on November 1st. In fact, I'm doing it shortly after midnight. I thought it appropriate to do it at this particular time, end of Halloween, All Saints Day, the day following, uh, because I want to talk a little bit about the story that a lot of commentators on the internet have been talking about. I'm going to throw my 2 cents in for whatever that's worth, because you may have heard by now that Chancellor Angela Merkel has stepped down. She has resigned her leadership of the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union, in Germany. And there's lots of speculation as to what this means. I'm going to take it at the outset as a little corroboration of my idea or theory that her government, after the last national federal elections in Germany, were so disastrous for the CDU and the other major party in her coalition government, the Social Democrat Party. Uh, the elections left that coalition very, very weak, as the Alternative für Deutschland, the AfD, picked up a large percentage of the votes. Then we saw the scandals with the head of the Bavarian CSU, that is the principal alliance party to the CDU in Bavaria. The leader of that party, of course, you recall, challenged Angela Merkel on her open borders policy. She forced him to resign. Her own interior minister resigned. And as a result of that, the CDU and the SDP and the CSU in Bavaria suffered massive losses in the Bavarian state elections. The AfD gained in Bavaria. Now they have just held state elections in the German state of Hesse. And of course, again, the CDU was handed a rather round defeat. Now, this does not mean that they lost, but what is causing people to view this as a defeat for Angela Merkel is that they lost several percentage points, I think around 11 percentage points of what they had held in Hesse before, and the SDP also lost a similar amount. And these votes, these percentages, were picked up in large part, again, by the AfD party. And this has had a cascading effect. Now there are people in the SDP, part of the parties of coalition in Angela Merkel's government, to call for an end to the coalition. In other words, if the SDP, folks, if the SDP walks out of the coalition, Angela Merkel's government collapses and they have to hold new elections. All right. Now, Merkel, I suspect, has headed off what looks to have been a leadership challenge in the CDU. And I kind of predicted this, you recall, that after the poor showings in the Bavarian elections and in the German federal elections last year, that the calls for her to step down within the party would intensify. I believe that Merkel has headed those off at the pass by resigning before it could get to that point. If it got to that point, then her coalition government would be endangered. So my point here is she's trying to hang on to that coalition government by resigning. But what I think this means is now her government is very, very weak. I, again, do not suspect that it is going to survive until 2021. I think eventually Merkel is going to be forced out. It's going to be the collapse of the coalition, either by the SDP pulling out or demands within her own party for her to go. And indeed, that may come from both parties within her coalition. And that is, again, going to throw everything up for grabs. Anyway, I want to draw your attention to this article from Zero Hedge. Merkel to step down as CDU leader in dramatic move. I'm going to read just a few paragraphs from the beginning of this article. Quote, Angela Merkel will not seek re-election as the chairman of Germany's ruling CDU party, effectively standing down as the leader of the Christian Democratic Union, a post she has held for 18 years. And folks, if you want to draw an analogy in European politics to a political leader having that kind of longevity as a party leader, the only other one that comes even remotely close to Angela Merkel would be Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in Great Britain. So anyway, a post she has held for 18 years after a disastrous performance by her party in regional elections in the German state of Hesse on Sunday badly dented her authority, and followed an ultimatum by her junior coalition party, the SPD, the Social Democratic Party, which also suffered a devastating loss in the latest elections. According to Spiegel and Bild, Merkel, who has chaired the Christian Democratic Union since the year 2000, was expected to compete again at the party congress in Hamburg in early December. However, in what many are calling the end of an era during which her command of Germany put its stamp on Europe and beyond for more than a decade, on Monday morning she told senior party executives that she would not stand again. The chancellor will reportedly retire after the end of her current term in 2021, which will give the CDU time to groom a successor. Now, here it comes, folks. Though she remains as one of Germany's most popular politicians, well, she's certainly not very popular right now. Her fellow Christian Democrats have long been demanding that she clear a path for her successor. After leaving German politics, Merkel has reportedly said she won't consider any EU-wide posts. As reported on Sunday, the CDU won the election in Hesse, but its share of the vote fell by more than 11 points. While the junior partner in her governing Grand Coalition, the Social Democrats, also slumped. The party's poor showing reignited calls for the SDP to quit the government. While Merkel can assume she'll have the support to remain chancellor, she's broken the game for her succession wide open, according to Bloomberg, although doing it in a dramatic fashion. A surprise, as she has here, may help throw her competitors off balance. That would help her hand-picked successor, CDU General Secretary Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, but others are waiting in the wings. Now, folks, this is the real story here. Just listen to who the others are, and that tells you the massive change that's going on inside of Germany, and for that matter, the rest of Europe, against this globalist agenda that's coming out of Brussels. Bild reports that Friedrich Merz, her main antagonist in the first years after she took over the CDU in the year 2000, has thrown his hat into the ring. Other possible contenders include Health Minister Jens Spahn, who has publicly criticized her open doors policy and is championed by the CDU's social conservatives, and Ralph Brinkhaus, a fiscal hawk who unexpectedly ousted Merkel's longtime parliamentary caucus leader. Now remember, that was a crucial thing that also happened recently to Merkel. Her pick for the leader of the CDU party in the Bundestag was defeated to be the caucus leader in the Bundestag by someone else, being this fiscal hawk. Others include two state premiers, Armin Laschet and Daniel Günther, who carry weight after recently leading the CDU to victory in regional elections. Now, folks, if you look at what I think is happening here, I think these are signals that even if the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland Party, does not ever succeed in entering a coalition, it is making enough of an impact on the political situation, on the parties of the center, particularly the party of the center right in Germany, the CDU, to pull it back off of the center-left position it's been occupying and to pull it back. And I strongly suspect that even then, the old guard in the CDU is not going to have much traction. You're going to have a move to put into the party leadership someone who can appeal to those people now voting with the AFD and denying the SDP and the CDU their votes in these state elections. So the party leadership now is up for grabs in the CDU, which again, I stress for folks that don't know this, this is the largest political party in Germany still, even after all these losses. So this is going to be a very interesting thing to watch. Again, my prediction here is Angela Merkel, I don't think, is going to be able to survive, nor will her coalition be able to survive until 2021. Something is going to happen. Either the coalition itself is going to demand that she step down as chancellor, and they will have to approve a new chancellor, or there's going to be a new election. There will be some crisis to trigger a new election, and the coalition will fall. Now, a lot depends on what other state elections are going to do, but this is all happening faster than I thought it would, although I did think eventually that Merkel would have to step down as party leader, and I was kind of predicting the last time we talked about Germany that her leadership position in the party was very weak, and all it would take to begin the process of unraveling this coalition government would be a leadership challenge. Now, my take again is that that challenge was probably being talked about after the Hesse state elections. It's not yet being reported, but I strongly suspect that within the CDU, there was already talk about replacing Merkel as party leader, and she's headed that off at the pass. I mean, she's a very astute politician in that sense. She's headed that off at the pass by indicating that she'll step down. And there are some people that think that that actually strengthens her hand within the coalition itself, because she's no longer having to concern herself with the internal party splits and so on and so forth. And that may be true, but I don't think it's going to save her in the long run. The SDP is now very, very upset with these election results, and they're upset with this coalition. So it's going to be interesting to see if the SDP even stays in this coalition. We may indeed see a collapse of this government and a new coalition being formed. Now, I'm going to step way out on the twig, on the edge of the twig here. If the SDP steps out of the coalition, it does not, to my mind, have enough strength to enter or to assume the government on its own. So in other words, there will be a new coalition government. The real question now is, would the SDP be interested in a coalition, in another coalition with a different party leader as the head of the CDU? Would the SDP be willing to accept a CDU chancellor? My suspicion is probably not. Or would the SDP actually, in order to gain a governance position in a coalition and with an SDP chancellor, would they be willing to reach out and form a coalition government, including the AFD, but excluding the CDU, but including the other German parties? That's an interesting hypothesis to ponder. A lot of it would depend on more election results inside of Germany. But Merkel's government, as a result of all of these things, is now very, very fragile and very, very weak. And the other problem here for much of Europe, and probably for the voters in Germany, is the increasingly insane pronouncements coming out of Emmanuel Macron's mouth. Do they want to have this man as the de facto leader of Europe, who's basically another Angela Merkel? And the answer is probably no. So they also are thinking in terms of, we need a strong German leader with saner policies to combat the Merkelism coming out of Macron. All right. So a lot's in play here. Remember the hidden player here. As all of this is going on, you've got Italy and Matteo Salvini, Giuseppe Conte, challenging Brussels and the whole austerity policy, the whole refugee policy. So a lot is in play. I think this is going to eventually affect whatever type of coalition does emerge in Germany after Merkel's government falls. And I think you're watching the end of the EU as currently constituted. At the end of this Zero Hedge article, I want you to pay attention to one more thing, and it's that graph of the weakness of the euro now as a result of the German elections. And that should tell you what is really the strength behind the euro. It's what everybody always knows. It's Germany. So there's a lot going on here. My little prediction is I don't expect now that Merkel's government is going to survive for 2 years. She's a very resourceful person when it comes to domestic politics. So, you know, she could pull all sorts of rabbits out of her hat and stay in power. But I rather suspect that her days now are very, very numbered. And she may even be looking for a quiet way out in order to save face. So big news coming out of Germany. She's not done yet, but I suspect she soon will be. Now, just a final announcement here, folks. Tomorrow, we do not have a vid chat. Please check the schedule, especially this month in November with the American holiday of Thanksgiving. I'm doing a vid chat kind of out of our normal 2-week sequence. And then there will be a vid chat at the end of the month. And then in December, the schedule's still not made because I'm still waiting to hear on when my Christmas company plans to be here. So I will get that schedule up as soon as I know. That's it. I'll see everybody on the flip side. Get ready to wave bye-bye to Angela Merkel. See you on the flip side, folks.